Say everybody, with Jake Coker, I'm Mick Gillispie. It's time for Elephant in the Room. We're going to talk about basketball right out of the chute. I'm going to tell you guys that right now with Mark Sears back, which I said he was coming back, but I was worried. Don't get me wrong. If I was an NBA team, I would have probably drafted him because we know how good the guy is. Also, Jaron Stevenson coming back. We got a dream team basketball club. Boom, man. This is the first time I ever have been this excited about Alabama hoops. And I grew up like loving college basketball. But they have put themselves, Jake, right at the top of the mountain. I mean, they have to be the preseason number one team in the country when you look at what they brought in. Yeah, lost some guys. You know, I still would have liked to have kept Rylan Griffin, but brought a bunch of guys in, and it's going to be – I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait for tip-off. We'll talk some football too. Going to talk some video game stuff. We'll get into what's going on with baseball and softball. But, man, were you surprised at all that they both came back? Did you think that maybe one of them would go into the draft?
You know, Mark Sears, I think if he's, 6'6", 6'5", I think he's gone for sure. You know, a Brandon Miller type body. I think his lack of length makes him, a draft pick that's kind of it's a gamble taking him just because of his length and his capability defensively in the NBA. And I think financially for him coming back to Alabama, the free marketing he's going to get for a year, especially in this state, is going to set him up for a long time in Alabama. So I think for him, the best decision was to come back. I mean, again, what do I know personally about Mark Sears? Nothing. But I think it's going to benefit Alabama and Mark Sears mutually in this scenario, and I think he's going to get a lot out of it. But
well, know a couple things, Jake. You know he's like the best baller that Alabama's ever had. I mean, you have to put him there. Who's better?
I mean, in terms of talent, I mean, I think what's his name,
Brandon Miller. I get that.
Brandon Miller's. I think he's the most talented, probably most gifted physically.
Robert Ory, Latrell Sprewell. I mean, there's some guys that could ball. Look, I'll never forget Erwin Dudley, what he brought to the table. Reggie King. I mean, you got guys, right? Wendell Hudson. Shout out to Coach Hudson. But
right.
This guy's different, man.
Yeah, well, there's a difference between talent and impact.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, a lot of guys have a lot of talent, bring a lot to the table, win a lot of games, but there's very few guys that have impacted the basketball team or just the program as much as Mark Sears have. Maybe no one ever. Bringing you to your first Final Four with a team that nobody thought would get there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you watch that SEC tournament, you think, man, there's no way these guys make it. And then you get the leadership from Mark Sears. I mean, the guy's cramping up, can't move at the end of games and in the NCAA tournament, hitting shots in crucial points of every game to get us there. I mean, again, guys can shoot 40%, but are they shooting 40% or 50, 60% in that last final 4 minutes when it really counts? And that's what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just he may not have all the tools to be an elite NBA player, and I'm not saying he won't be. I think he's a phenomenal player, could have a really great NBA career. But I mean, draft status, a lot of it has to do with measurements, and his measurements, aren't like Brandon Miller's measurements. So it's hard to measure intangible qualities. He's got a lot of them, probably more than almost anybody in the country. But these NBA teams take that into account when they draft these guys, and he just, unfortunately, he's 6'1", but fortunately for him, he's coming back to Alabama. He's going to make a boatload of money, and he's the kind of guy that I think everybody wants to see make money and do well his final year in Tuscaloosa.
I think you put it well. I mean, he's got the potential marketing-wise. I mean, he's what NIL is supposed to be about, right? A guy
He is the blueprint for the NIL. If he was a football player, Coach Saban would want him to get paid a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think everybody's on the same page there.
Yeah. I think he's face of the athletic program. I mean, football included. I've told you this before. He doesn't wear a helmet. He's got a great smile, good-looking kid. Moms, saw her. Everybody loves her too. Dancing at games, and doing all that stuff. Like businesses it'd be great to have, him on the next Campbell's commercial or doing something with his mom, or he's selling cars or talking about this or that. Like the leadership that he showed too. He gets, he's from Alabama. I know he went to Ohio and then came back, right? He just gets it, man. Like there's so many. I hate to use this term because I don't believe in the checking boxes thing, right? I think that you don't check. I think you find the fit based on the fit. But when it comes to marketing firms and stuff, that's what they do. They check boxes. He checks all the boxes. I mean, smart guy, great communicator. The family, you know them from being on TV. He's a winner, got to the Final Four. He's brought basketball to the forefront of the University of Alabama, which is making all of the Auburn people puke because they had basketball. Okay. Yeah. They had basketball. Football, hey, you know what? We're going to play for our 8-win season. We're going to give Alabama all they want. We're going to show up against Alabama, Jake, and we're going to give them a game. And then we're going to lose to New Mexico State the week before, and then we're going to get blown out by Maryland in the bowl game. But Alabama, we're playing you guys tough. And then basketball season. Now we got hoops. And then all of a sudden, Mark Sears and that team go to the Final Four, and now it's like, man, they're even getting basketball ripped away from them down on the plains. God, it's sad.
It's a tough time to be an Auburn fan. I mean, really, throughout the history of time, Auburn has been little brother, and it's been tough to be an Auburn fan when you got Alabama just putting you back in your place. And we've now wrestled basketball out of their hands, and for the short time they had it. And back to Mark Sears, it goes back. He is the embodiment of the hard hat era that Nate Oats has brought to Tuscaloosa. Prior to him, I feel like it was Herb Jones, guy that had a little more length, but he didn't have the shooting and athletic ability, in my opinion, that Mark Sears had. But the impact that he had on the program was unmatchable. He was a guy that everybody knows, everybody remembers and appreciates, and is loved within the basketball, brotherhood, I guess, or fanhood. And they kind of remind me of each other. Now, again, Herb Jones wasn't able to get us to a Final Four, but he's kind of the same guy. He's a guy you put in that category with Mark Sears, just because maybe doesn't have the measurables or the athleticism that Brandon Miller had, but look what they gave to the fans in Tuscaloosa. Everything they had, they do it the right way. They represent the state in such an honorable manner. Just got to love those guys and love what Nate Oats has brought in terms of a culture to that program. And now he's got the talent with that mentality, and we're going to see it for the first time this year, how dangerous that his way of coaching will be.
Yeah. Good way to put it. How about Jaron Stevenson? Haven't talked a lot about him, but we saw flashes of what type of player he is. Obviously could have gone to a lot of other schools, comes back to Alabama. It was a little surprising that he put his name into the NBA, draft in the first place, but now looking back at it, I think it's actually a really smart move because you go through the process one time, you get an idea of what they expect, and you get to go back to school and work on the things that the NBA scouts tell you that you need to work on. Maybe you have a little more fire because you can taste what it's going to take to be successful at the next level, but you get to come back on a team that should be stacked and be one of the leaders of that team.
Yeah, Jaron Stevenson, I think everybody was a little surprised when he threw his hat in there, but going back to what you said, it makes a lot of sense now that he understands where his weaknesses are, or what his weaknesses are perceived to be by the NBA. I thought he was a hell of a player for us, somewhat of a role guy this year, but when he had to make shots, he made shots. He's got the length, he's got the athleticism. I'd like to see him, handle the ball and show us more of what he can do from the aspect of, driving the ball, getting in the paint, doing more than kind of being that guy that shoots from three and makes a name for himself in that aspect of the game. But couldn't be happier that he's coming back. And man, the depth we're going to have this year is just going to be unbelievable. One guy comes out, you got a guy that's fresh coming in that's just as good as the guy he replaced. Had a conversation with somebody yesterday that was nervous about managing all that talent, but I think that could be an issue down the road after a few national championships. I'm going to go ahead and say that. But right now, I think everybody wants to make a name for themselves in Tuscaloosa. They saw what happened to Mark Sears. The guy is obviously in a great position, taking Alabama to the Final Four. It was the best story, in my opinion, of the tournament. If you do that at Alabama, establish that dynasty, which I'm hoping for and which I'm pretty confident is going to happen, that's going to do a lot for you down the road. And Mark Sears, I think, is kind of proven that can be done in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. I mean, it's I hope that this isn't just something that is a flash in the pan, that it's all about Nate Oats. I mean, I know it is, but I hope that this is something that can continue, where Alabama really becomes a team and a program that could be bigger than Nate Oats. And I've said this about Nick Saban. As much as I love Nick Saban, football was football before Nick Saban was there. Alabama won championships before Nick Saban got there. I love Coach Saban, and it's not a shot at him. The program's bigger than Nick Saban. I don't feel like that about basketball. Honestly, I feel like right now the program is Nate Oats, and that for this program to take the next step, they need to invest in the program. And I mean, with a new arena. And I heard that there's maybe some talk that there could be a big announcement coming. And if that's the big announcement, I think that is the start of not just having a great coach, but having a program that can elevate itself to this level now. Because Coleman Coliseum, somebody put a picture on Twitter, and it was like this bomb. It's like a bomb shelter that was all blown up, and it was like, we just lost to Alabama, and it had that place. That's how when I see that place, that's what I see. But it doesn't matter. They're winning anyway. But I think that's the next step.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an excitement amongst recruits that are getting recruited to Alabama. It kind of reminds me of Florida State. The first, I was in Jimbo's first recruiting class to come to Florida State, and there was a lot of excitement about that because you felt like Jimbo was, this was his first job as a head coach. You could tell that he was different when you met with him, when you talked to him. Parents loved him. He knew what he was doing. You just felt like you had that feel that things were going to go really well in Tallahassee under Jimbo's control. And I feel like recruits get that same feeling from Nate Oats. He really, really proved it this year. But it's pretty cool to go into a program that, look, they might not have the best facilities. They may not have, SEC type talent right now. But it's pretty awesome to be that group that elevates that program and gets them to a place where, Alabama football is, where now the floor is set. A coach has come in there and set the standard, created an atmosphere around there for long-term success. And, when you're 30, 40, 50, you come back and the place is totally different because what you established when you came in there as a recruit and a freshman and your career there as a player.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. I hope that that's the case. You know,
yeah, I mean, look, it's no secret that Alabama Coleman Coliseum is not the best facility in the country. I mean, that's no secret, but it would be pretty cool for as a recruit to come in there and really generate a lot of excitement, new revenue through your play on the court, and create the foundation for a basketball program that thrives.
Yeah, and that's what's happening, man. I mean, there's a lot of hype, and I'm going to tell you, it's hard to sometimes be on teams that have high expectations, right? But if you don't address those expectations, to me, and I want to get your opinion on this. I mean, this is how it is every year at Alabama football. You've talked about on here and just us talking, how tough it was at times to play football because you wanted to live up to those expectations, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself to win because that's what the expectation is. But with that said, I feel like for basketball to really win a national championship, that Nate Oats saying we're here to win a national championship is a step in that direction. Because I think that just going back to 2009, I remember Alabama won the national championship, and our friend Mike Johnson's like, hey, we would have won in 08, but our goal was, hey, we want to get to the SEC championship. And it was like, no, our goal should have been we want to win the national championship. And they got to the SEC championship game, and so the next year they came out and they're like, hey, we want to win this. And they did. I mean, think about still one of the most amazing games ever was when and I like Tim Tebow now, no disrespect, but they made Tebow cry. And that was still one of the classic games in Alabama history. And it also showed, I'll tell you what, it also showed me what a class act Tebow is, because him saying that I hope these guys win the national championship and I almost went there and he's crying. I love that guy. I love that humility because I don't know that I could do that. I don't know if I'd be LeBron James and walk off the court and not shake the other team's hand. But first off, one of the great games ever. Secondly, established a culture of, hey, that's what we're here to do. And I feel like basketball's trying to do the same thing. Is that too much? Am I throwing too much out there?
Well, yeah, Tebow's a whole different subject.
Did you ever play? You never played against him, right? Because he was older. Did you ever meet that guy?
He was older than me. I've never met Tebow, but he's the only guy where you hear all these stories and you're like, there's no way this guy can be this perfect. Like, there's just no way.
He is.
But you never hear him say anything. Well, nowadays everything's controversial, but in my opinion, I mean, you never hear him say anything that's off color. You never see him or hear anything about him doing anything that's questionable. I mean, the guy's just. I wish I had that kind of self-control and that kind of. I don't know. I guess. I mean, I try to do everything as well as possible and do everything right, but I feel like he takes it to a whole nother level. I mean, let me tell you what, if I had a sponsor giving me $1 million to do an ad, I wouldn't be asking Coach Belichick permission. I'd be doing that.
Be a good ad right there.
Yeah. And then you ask Coach Belichick for permission. He says it's probably not a good idea, and then he cuts you. I mean, of course, I know he's got no shortage of money, but that'd be tough to turn down. But anyway, no, I agree. The goal setting, when you have those kind of goals, I think it brings a whole new level of intensity to every workout, every practice, every rep that you participate in. I know, each week during the summer each week was dedicated to a game week schedule. So it'd be, whatever our schedule was. I think we had 12 weeks of workouts or whatever. And we'd, practice each workout like we were playing whichever team on the schedule that week. And all of that, encompassed a national championship at the end. So First of all, you had Scott Cochran pushing us, and that was, again, he's one of the best I've ever been around in terms of motivating people and getting the most out of them. But with that expectation, there was always that reminder what the ultimate goal was. And there was no better driver. I know when I got there in 2014, we watched the kick six. I don't know how many times. I never want to see that play again. I never want to hear the commentary on it. Just the summer workouts in 2014, leading up to that season after the kick six, it drove me crazy having to hear about that nonstop. And I wasn't even on that team. They're always pushing the buttons. I know Cochran, he came in there with I think it was the Sugar Bowl trophy or whatever trophy it was that was won that wasn't the national championship, and he spiked it.
Were you there for that? Were you there for that?
I can't remember if I was or not.
Was that your team? That was after you guys.
I can't remember which team it was. I think it was after us.
Yeah, I think it was the next year.
But that's the mentality. I mean, anything other than a national championship is ultimately disappointing. Don't care if you win 13 games and lose one at the end. It is what it is at Alabama, and that's the way it should be. Again, I've told this story on here before when we were playing the national championship, and there were some drives where I did not throw it where I wanted to, didn't do what I needed to do, and the thought came across, my mind is, you're going to be the only quarterback that lost a national championship for Coach Saban, and it's great to get there, but ultimately you're forgotten if you don't win one.
Mm-hmm.
And your season is a failure if you don't win one, and really in Alabama, if you don't win one, it's usually the quarterback's fault. So,
yeah, talk about that. Look, that you just hit on something. That's why I love doing these shows. Hey, yeah, move around enough to get your lights to come back on in there.
Okay,
I mean, what you got those lights on a timer or something? You guys, you're gonna have to sell more so they don't have to worry about trying to turn the lights off on you.
This building is no Taj Mahal. I can tell you that.
like, hey, we're losing a lot of money on that Coker's lights. Cut them. You just hit on something, and it's interesting to us as people that have never been in your spot. You're in not a huge, but you're in a fraternity of quarterbacks at Alabama, which is a great fraternity. Because you're memorable, all you guys. I mean, I could probably go back and name every single quarterback from Freddie Kitchens on. That's my time at Alabama, right? Freddie Kitchens on. Yeah. And I know I can. I don't sit here and do it, but I just know. I remember. So that means that you're part of that group. And then there's a smaller group, which I think I can name a lot of those guys, at least from Jay Barker on, of the quarterbacks that have won national championships. And I know that there's people watching that can get them all, going all the way back probably through Bear and maybe even going back to Wallace Wade and Frank Thomas.
Yeah.
But Alabama loses, and I see this with Jalen Milroe, and I like Jalen Milroe, and I like really I like a dynamic quarterback, that like him can throw and can run at the next at the next level when you see that LSU tape.
Yeah.
But when Alabama loses, it's like the quarterback always gets a lot more blame. And maybe when they win, they get a lot more credit than they deserve. And, with that said, what was that like?
I mean, you always feel it. And I know some guys that didn't win one that, I'm not going to name any names, but I can tell there's a little, they love their time in Alabama, but I can tell they definitely still feel the pain of that underlying grudge, I guess, that they felt from fans that kind of tore them down because they didn't win one, or some teams that lost a few games and eras where we weren't quite as good, they got a lot of blame. And so, I mean, there's definitely some. I've gotten a little older, and I used to be a lot worse in terms of handling that, but now I just joke around, and I really unbothered by it. Once you have kids and all that, and life gets bigger than that, you
well,
stop
you won
worrying.
one though.
Oh, I know, but I mean, you still used to hear well, we won, but man, we'd have been a lot better if we had somebody else, or but there's definitely a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah, fuck that. I love how people think like it's like, oh, it wasn't good enough, right? Yeah.
I mean, now
I haven't heard that. I swear I haven't heard that though. With you.
Well, I could. I used to care. Now I really don't.
Get that out.
I do not give a shit anymore. I mean, it is what it is. I played at Alabama, loved it, and if you like it, great. If you don't, kiss my ass.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that's the way you got to be, and I'm sure that when you talk to guys like Milroe, after you ask them to hook you up with roadback gear, you probably that would be a conversation that you guys could have, because I'm sure that like when you run into other guys and they're players, like guys that are current players, that's probably something, managing those expectations, that they could use some help with, because I can imagine that being really difficult to deal with.
No, yeah. Well, when you're that age, I mean, you have no responsibilities outside of being good at football. I mean, honestly, you got to pass your classes in order to be eligible to play football, but where you're judged is on the football field, and that's basically it. And you don't have, at least, I mean, for me, when 20 years old, I didn't have a wife, kids to that were my responsibility. I mean, football is it. And so you took that responsibility very seriously. And so when you hear, negative comments or whatever, you get angry about that, because you've spent so much time and effort and being good at it and representing your school. You care a lot about it. You care a lot about the former players that were there that have high expectations for you, and fans that you just want to perform for and give them a good show, and you want to win for them. And you think about that a lot. It weighs on you a lot. And as the quarterback at Alabama, when you've won was 18 national championships now, anything short of that is a failure. And you're the most, I mean, Derek was the most highlighted player my year, but outside of that, it was a lot on me, and Derek was known as a good player. And, I was kind of the one that I felt like if we didn't play well, it's Jake's fault. Yeah. And that's part of it. I mean, I've told the story about that intramural softball game where that drunk fraternity guy was like, he was like, well, you gonna suck this year? Or you actually gonna play? And I was like, who the hell are you? And I'm like, I remember going home thinking about that, and I was like, well, that comes with the territory, I mean,
yeah,
you're in the spotlight. It's part of what you do. And so, I mean, look, there's a lot of responsibility with it.
What fraternity was this guy in? He wasn't in a KA, I can tell you that. No, he was not. No chance. Was that at Florida? Oh, that was at Alabama?
No, that was at Florida State.
Okay, well, shame on them. Now, I think sometimes people like come off like that. They're trying to be funny, and then you're just like, they don't know like the external factors that you're dealing with. Like it's in your all you're thinking about is how you want to get. First off, you got to fight to get on the field, right? Well, then you got to go to practice. You get beat up. You're hot. You're sweaty. Everything you do, if you're doing it right, you're eating a certain way. It is a 24-hour job. right?
Yeah.
Managing, watching film, making sure everybody on the team does what they're supposed to do. Then you got to get out there. Then you got to get into a game. Sometimes your coach doesn't know if you're good enough or somebody else is, and then you got to deal with that. It's a lot more than just, hey, man, give me the football. And look at Milroe. I mean, it was the same thing for him. And I guess that's part of the competitiveness of playing on a team with good players. You got to rise to that top spot. And then you got some drunk guy that's trying to be funny. And it's like, you could lose your shit on somebody like that.
Yeah. I was pretty firm in my response. And he was like, I was pretty firm in my response. And he looked at me and goes, well, hell, you signed up for it. I was like, damn it, you're right, But no, I mean, it's day in and out when you're not the starter and everybody's behind you. Let me tell you what, man, there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of, your mind goes to a lot of different places. I mean, I remember I'd have a bad practice and I was a 5th-year senior and Coach Saban would send me to the third and fourth team to get reps. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell are we doing? I mean, is this a punishment or is he really demoting me or what? And all these things go through your mind and then you're repping play, you're getting reps and trying to focus and just a lot of mental gymnastics a lot of times when you're in that situation. And
right.
So, I mean,
then you got Theodore Griffin III out at the softball game. Hey, Jake, I'm from Mountain Brook. I was just wondering, you're going to play this year or you're going to suck?
Well, it's like, I mean, it taught me to I mean, all you can control is all you can control, and it's taught me that I wish I was better at it when I was playing, but it's definitely taught me a lot now. I mean, what's most important, I know what's most important day in and day out when I show up at the office and I do that and all the stuff on the side, people may get mad, but I got to do what's most important first and worry about that. And then I'll get to that when I get a chance. But again, until Tua came along, I mean, it was really the Alabama culture was run the ball and the quarterback just needs to not screw it up. And that's come from Coach Saban's mouth,
Yeah, right.
So again,
but you know what, man, not to interrupt you, but when I went to pretty much all of those games that season. And when you got into a situation where you had to throw the football, it was there, man. Like, I mean, looking back now, but I mean, dude, you that's why the guy made up the fake account on Twitter about like deep ball Coker. I mean, and you would throw those deep balls, dude, like some pretty good bombs.
I mean, I feel the same way, but I mean, the perception is what it is, and it's part of it. I always thought AJ, Greg, John Parker, I thought they were great quarterbacks, and
they were.
But you have that stigma at Alabama that is what it is, and so a lot of great plays get overlooked, but the best teams have a stable running game, and great offensive lines, and Coach Saban was a master at putting together teams with a lot of talent that had players that made plays at the right times, and that's what Alabama was. And of course, you throw an interception or two, it's going to cause you to most likely lose a game against a team that's as good as you are. And so, do the quarterbacks deserve all the blame? No, but they also do have a pretty big hand in losing games if they make big mistakes. So a lot of that blame is warranted. A lot of it's not. But, to me, you watch this past season, Jalen Milroe, I don't think Alabama can get where they got unless you have the plays that Jalen Milroe makes. I think he made that offense this year. His athleticism.
Yeah, he did. And the offensive line wasn't good enough to just drop back and throw the football. When you got guys, you couldn't have had a quarterback that didn't have enough athleticism to get out of the way, and even, going back to the Michigan game, had they blocked better, I mean, we would have won. Like, I'm sorry. I mean, we lost in overtime, would have won that game. You can't put that on him. I know the last play of the game sucked and all of that stuff, but man, the snaps were bad. The line was bad at times.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, watching that team last year, I mean, Jalen carried that team offensively. I mean, It is what it is. He made plays. I mean, if you had told me what he was going to look like in week 6 versus, what we saw, and again, Texas game made some mistakes that were very costly, but at the same time, first real big start, but had you told me he was going to look like the Jalen Milroe that he looked like in week 6, I'd have said, you've lost your mind. I mean, there's no way he's going to make those plays. And because we hadn't seen him spread it out, and throw the football around. But all of a sudden he was throwing it, he was running it. It was like, man, without this guy, I don't know what we do. He just he carried us to a different level, and we're not in that playoff without him. No, game, his performance against LSU was one of the most. I mean, he grinded that game out and just dominated physically. It's just one of the best performances I've seen from a quarterback. Showed a tremendous amount of grit, and you gotta love the way he carries himself off the field. He's a Mark Sears type impact player, in my opinion. I think he means so much to that program and has done so much for Alabama in a time there's a lot of transition, a lot of rumors spreading, and he kept the focus on football and did what he had to do to lead that team to where we got. And so,
hey, if we would have had a guy like him on the defensive secondary, we probably wouldn't have had all those guys bolt. He really was like the glue that kept all of those guys together. I mean, I guess that guy was probably Malachi, and it's a tough task to have, but to keep the offense pretty much intact. I mean, I know, we lost Bond and we lost Nye Black, to Texas, a couple other guys, but nothing like the secondary on the team.
Yeah.
He's a positive energy guy, and I'll say this, Jake, for both of us, it really meant a lot to destroy him in the mullet toss because he's such a good guy, It did. Both of us.
When we met him, that was the first time I had met him, was at the mullet toss. And it's like we talked about, when you meet somebody and, I mean, they got a lot of energy, they got a presence about them. I mean, that's what you felt about Jalen. You felt the way that he carries himself within the media, and you feel like that guy's a solid leader, performance-wise and character-wise. And he's the kind of guy that you want to be the face of your program if you're an Alabama fan, and we've got a hell of a guy there. And Ty Simpson, the same. I think Ty Simpson, to have those two guys in the same locker room, a guy that Ty Simpson could leave and make NIL money somewhere else. So there's no doubt about it. To have those two guys, two leaders, I mean, he's going on his 3rd year. The importance of a backup quarterback with that kind of leadership, that kind of moral compass, from what I've heard, it's going to do it a lot because people don't think about it. You get a receiver hurt, and you got to put a guy in that's been with the second team. If you don't have a quarterback on that second team that's pushing them, that's teaching them, that's getting them to a place in practice where they can be ready for a game, receivers that haven't played a lot can be in a really bad spot, can put you in a bad spot too, because the timing's off. They don't understand how to run their routes. They don't understand where the quarterback wants them to be. But when you got a backup who understands it, can walk them through it, because coaches don't have enough time to coach everybody on the field. They just don't.
Yeah.
So those second team guys, when they've got a quarterback that can help them out and get them on the same page, and it especially helps when you've got a fellow player doing it, because it's not so much, a coach just jumping on your ass and then moving on to the next guy. You got a guy that comes to you, talks to you, walks you through it, and really helps you understand it. It means a lot in terms of depth for a football team.
Guys, let me remind you, we're brought to you by MyBookie. We've all been there before. Weekend trip to the casino canceled because of real life. MyBookie and their new improved casino is here to change the game. Dive into truly realistic casino experience, including slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your home. MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action is in your hands, and you don't even have to wear pants. Start at MyBookie today with a generous sign-up bonus using promo code NEXTROUND, and a revamped loyalty program ensures a host of exclusive VIP perks. The more you play, the more you win with MyBookie. We appreciate them being a part of our show. And then, the other thing I want to tell you guys too before we get out of here is we both have really enjoyed the MyBookie partnership and also the swag box that we got from the gang over at Roback. And I was wearing the black polo yesterday, and I had to go pick something up, and I walk in, and this guy starts talking to me about golf. He saw my shirt. He's telling me about his golf game and all the great shots he makes and how he's gotten into golf. And I just sat there and was like, yeah, awesome, man. I don't even play golf, but I look the part when I'm wearing my Roback.
Sure you do.
He thought I looked like Scotty Scheffler. He was ready to put me in jail.
Yeah, I was about to say, are you wearing handcuffs?
Yeah. That's so funny. But guys, use the promo code ROOM20 for 20% off. Father's Day is coming up. You got a couple weeks to get you some good Roback gear. I'm actually I put the word out, like Roback this year. Room 20, go ahead and hook me up. I'm going to look so good, so suave with my gear that I'm going to get from MyBookie. I want that Chicago shirt. There's a new Nashville shirt that they got, the crabs and beer shirt, or crabs and football shirt that they have. So I got some things I'm eyeing in there. What about you?
You froze there for a second, but yeah, I'm getting some July 4th. Some July 4th attire from Roback, no doubt about it.
Nice. All right, brother. Well, look, this was a great. Okay, go ahead, jump in.
To go back to the quarterback blame deal. I mean, I'm sitting here making it sound like it's a bad thing. It comes with the territory, but you definitely feel it as an Alabama quarterback. But I'll say this: I mean, when you're giving it everything you got on the field, like Jalen was this year, and I felt like I couldn't have given any more physically on the football field when I was playing there. I mean, I had some damn good teammates. I mean, love that team to death. It was so unselfish. When you have guys like I had to play with, I think everybody kind of heard the same thing, and when they saw me playing and saw me put forth the effort that I put forth, I could tell that everybody really appreciated that. It meant a lot to me. And so I did have that, you felt like you had that blanket of teammates that rallied around you and helped you and pushed you through it. And that was the best, I don't know, I guess, psychological boost throughout all that. So when you got those teammates like Ryan Anderson, like Shank.
Yeah.
Ryan
great
King,
guys, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys,
people that you really love.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it blocks out all the noise. I mean, I didn't have social media, so that helped, but having those kind of guys around you, it really blocked out the noise. I didn't really think about it. I had some of those moments in the national championship game where it crossed my mind, but I'm pretty brutal to myself mentally sometimes to motivate me, obviously. So, again, it's part of it. And all I can say is thank God we won it.
Yeah, roll tide, baby. I think that's a great place to end this show. Good luck to softball. They're trying to fight away elimination against Duke tonight. Baseball plays UCF, so they're a number 2 seed in that Tallahassee regional. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll talk about those teams on Monday. I guess when we get together early next week. But have a great weekend, brother.
Man, enjoyed it. Yep, you too.
All right, roll tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Hopefully I'll be watching softball tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Get in the comment section. You guys are helping us build this podcast. Share with your friends. And roll tide, everybody.